Check it out, Casper!
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in, Casper here, and welcome back to Rebalance, the series where we discuss weapons which are overpowered, underpowered, overused or underused. And today, we've got possibly the most divisive weapon in the entire game. The Dead Ringer. Let's start off with looking at Spy Cloak in general and what makes the Dead Ringer unique. Cloaking in TF2 usually means pressing your secondary fire to go completely invisible to the enemy team, including sentry guns. Whilst cloaked, you can still take damage from any damaging source like normal, however that damage will be reduced by 20% for the entire time that you're invisible. You also cannot use any weapon during this time, although you can change disguise. Now, the Dead Ringer has a few unique twists on the base cloaking mechanics. The biggest difference is that you don't choose when to go invisible. Instead, secondary fire causes you to ready your Dead Ringer, and during this period you cannot fire any weapons, just like if you were normally cloaked, except you're not cloaked. Instead, you are forced to go invisible as soon as you take any damage whilst having your Dead Ringer drawn. Along with this, the Dead Ringer also drops a ragdoll of your body and shows your death in the enemy team's kill feed, effectively faking your death, with the intention of making it appear real as far as the enemy can tell. Of course, there's a lot of things which can give away a Dead Ringer feign, but the important thing is that this is what it's supposed to be used for. As well as dropping the fake body, you also gain a notable speed boost and flame resistance for a few seconds. The idea of this weapon is that you can jump in, get a kill or a sap or two, and then let your cloak get triggered so you convince the enemy team that you've died, and then use that speed boost to get away from the fight and into a safe position, and then essentially rinse and repeat the whole thing again. On top of this, the Dead Ringer also gives damage resistance whilst you're invisible, just like the regular cloaks, although there is a twist. And it's this twist to the damage resistance which gives the Dead Ringer its cloudy reputation. Rather than 20% damage resistance whilst invisible, the Dead Ringer gives you a massive 75% for the initial hit, i.e. the hit which triggers your Dead Ringer. Then after that, you get 65% damage resistance over 3 seconds, which drains down to 20%, and then it stays at 20% for the last 4 seconds. Just like all the cloaks, you can refill your cloak by picking up ammo, although with the Dead Ringer and the Cloak and Dagger, you can only do this if you're not currently invisible. So it's the fact that 1, you block so much damage on the initial cloak, and 2, that you can pick up enough ammo to almost instantly re-cloak that causes this weapon to be considered so annoying, because there's a spy who practically can't be killed. Believe it or not, the Dead Ringer stats used to be even stronger, originally blocking more damage and for the entire duration of the invisibility. The weapon underwent a serious overhaul in the Gunmetal update where most of its values are tweaked, and the Dead Ringer we know and love today was given to us in December 2015 with the Tough Break update, so the Dead Ringer has been as it is now for well over a year, although 1 year for TF2 is only 10% of its life. I'll let that sink in for a moment. So, what is the Dead Ringer in the context of the Rebalance series? Well, I don't think there's anyone who's ever played TF2 who is saying this weapon is underused. In fact, most would call it overpowered or overused. In its current state, I would definitely say it's the latter. This weapon is overused, but it's not too strong these days, and allow me to tell you why before you get all upset in the comments. I can definitely see from both sides of this debate why it's something that people particularly don't like to play against, and why so many people choose to play it in the first place. The reason it's revered to play against it is largely due to what we talked about earlier, its spam ability. The fact that Spy can sponge large amounts of damage over and over again without any apparent use of skill. Now, we do have to remember that part of this reputation comes from older iterations of the weapon, where its spam ability was much more severe, due to its higher damage resistance as well as changes to the recharge timings. Of course, that's not to say that this weapon can't still be spammed in that way, it's just a lot less extreme. Since the speed boost was added, and the various tweaks to how your cloak meter is refilled before you can trigger the Dead Ringer again, the stats of this weapon these days are much better at encouraging it to be used how it's intended, as an ambush tool. It's good for 1 or 2 kills before you have to run away and spend 30 seconds or so resetting your health, ammo, and position before you're able to try again. And, if you think about it, the time that it takes a spy to reset after using his Dead Ringer can often be just as long, if not longer, as it would have taken the spy to genuinely get killed and have to respawn. The main difference, of course, here being that the spy does get the opportunity to be in a better map position after feigning with the dead ringer. On the topic of why this is annoying to play against, we also have to bear in mind that getting killed by a spy is annoying regardless, and the fact that there is a doubt in your mind whether you've actually killed him or not is only going to increase your paranoia and annoyance. And that's intentional. Spy is probably the most psychological class in the game, and if a spy can make you worry about him when he's not even there, then he's just doing his job right. Now, the main reason from a spy's perspective to pick the dead ringer over the other watches is because in TF2, there is so many ways that you can accidentally take damage, be it a stray rocket splash or a ridiculously positioned sentry gun or an enemy pyro whose mouse 1 button just seems to be glued down. And all of these scenarios are infinitely more likely to cross your path when you're actively trying to pass through the enemy lines anyway, which is what a spy will be doing most of the time. So what's the best way to not instantly die when crossing the enemy lines? Resist as much damage as possible while you're doing it. TF2 is a casual game, and at the end of the day, any player is going to pick the items they believe that they can have the most fun with. And most people, given the choice between dying repeatedly to accidental damage versus not dying repeatedly to accidental damage, I think you know which one they're going to pick. An argument I often hear is that the dead ringer is a crutch. In other words, that a person using the dead ringer is such a bad player, they can't play without it. To which I say, so what? It's a video game. For fun. If that person is having fun using that weapon, then let them. If that person was interested in becoming a better spy, then they would spend the time learning and perfecting their use of the other watches, because a more versatile player is obviously a stronger player, and the dead ringer style, whilst it is useful, it's not a style of play which is a one-size-fits-all scenario style of play. And if you're thinking that a crutch weapon means that the weapon is overpowered, then you're pretty much wrong, at least in this instance. Because for every second a dead ringer spy will spend being in a state of fake death, then resetting, then getting all the way back into position, is a second where that spy is effectively doing nothing. A cloak and dagger spy could be hiding right behind your position at any given time, pop out, kill you, and hide in the exact same position and do this repeatedly until someone wises up. And that isn't particularly often in your average pub server. Sure, you're much more likely to kill this player due to their reduced damage resistance by comparison, but the time they have to spend respawning and getting back into position is ultimately not going to be that far different from the time a dead ringer spy is spending running around erratically in the back lines of a map trying to find ammo and health kits. So, to reiterate and summarise, the dead ringer is overused, more than overpowered, but that's because the playstyle it promotes simply fits more into TF2's spammy and casual gameplay. Whilst playing against it might make it appear overpowered due to the fact that you're never actually killing the spy who's using it, it's more than likely the case that you're wasting so much of his time that you might as well have killed them. Therefore, it's difficult to read to say this weapon is too strong because the actual net result of attacking him is the same as if he wasn't using it. I know regardless of what I say, people are going to disagree on this one, but that's okay. Everyone's got different perspectives and different experiences when playing this game, so when we're talking about something as subjective as whether a weapon is too strong or too weak, there's obviously going to be people who have different things to say. So by all means, let me know what it is you want to say if you don't agree with me. And if you do agree with me, let me know that too. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who want to talk about this one. On the screen right now is a vote for what we're going to cover next time, so do click on whatever weapon you would love to see in the next episode of this series. Remember, it's not necessarily overpowered or underpowered or overused or underused, but it will be one of those. Here's a couple of suggested videos on the screen from some of my other series, and thank you everybody for watching. I shall see you all very soon. Someone told me that I'm special.